Welcome back everyone, Meanpooh here, and today I'm going to take a look at the MSI GE75 Raider 9 SE. After opening the shipping package, I was greeted to a black box with the MSI logo in red. The box has a red handle and a seal at the top. A broken seal can indicate tampering or any number of things. Opening the lid, we have a top cover for the box. Under this is the support card and the laptop covered in a black cloth encased in plastic. In the small box on the left, there is an AC power cord in a plastic baggie. Removing the laptop from the box, the machine is located inside the black material, which reminds me of Tyvek. The logo is in white and is centered. Returning to the box, we have another bag that has 4 screws. 2 being chrome colored and the other 2 being black. Here is a disk caddy that can support a 2.5 hard drive or SSD drive. There is a quick start guide and a warranty card. This is the MSI products book that has some samples of their hardware. There is a recovery manual, and in the last box is the other half of the adapter. This is a 180 watt 19.5 volt power supply. Removing the laptop from its packaging, the lid has another protective layer of film. Peeling the film back, the lid is cool to the touch and feels like aluminum. The top is very smooth and I didn't see any dents or scratches. Near the top of the panel, there is the MSI logo that lights up when turned on. This too has a layer of film that needs to be removed. Moving from left to right, on the front of the laptop, we have 3 indicator LEDs on the center under the small lift notch. The first is the wireless LAN or Wi-Fi. The LED will glow when it is enabled and go out when it is not. The second indicator is the battery status. This does a few things. It will glow when the battery is being charged and will turn amber in color when the battery is in low capacity status. If the indicator starts to continuously blink, that means that there is something wrong with the battery. You then should contact support. The battery status indicator will go dark if the machine is fully charged or if the AC-DC adapter is disconnected. Lastly, we have the drive activity indicator. It will blink when the system is accessing the internal storage drives. Going down the right side, we have a card reader, 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, the ventilation, and the power connector. Moving around to the rear and going from left to right, we have an exhaust vent, the Raider logo that is hard plastic, and then another exhaust vent. Coming around to the left, we have a Kensington lock, another ventilation port, an RJ45 connector so you can hardwire to your network, and it supports a data rate of 10/100 1000 megabits per second, an HDMI port that supports 4K at 60 Hz, a mini display port which I believe is version 1.2, a USB 3.1 Gen 2 port that supports up to 10 gigabits per second, another USB 3.1 Gen 2 port, but this is a Type-C and also supports up to 10 gigabits per second. On the end, we have the audio port connectors, with the first being headphone and digital audio out or SPDIF, and the second being a microphone port. On the bottom, the speakers are located here and are downward firing. This is the right speaker and this is the left. These are the locations of the screws. The laptop is back heavy, so it will take 2 hands to open it. Here we have another layer of protective material on the inside and can double as a cleaning cloth. It's similar to the material that you would use to clean your seeing eyeglasses. Again, there is a MSI logo on the cloth that is faint white. Going over the top, there is a Dyne Audio logo pressed into the case. MSI claims that this will bring users the ultimate sound experience. The MSI Raider features a SteelSeries keyboard with RGB per key, in which you can customize each key to your liking. The keyboard is full size and includes a number pad on the right side. Shortcuts such as sleep mode, disable touchpad, airplane mode, and more are all here, and can be accessed by using the function key. On the far top right, there are 3 buttons. Going down, there's the power button, which turns the machine on and off. The quick launch button, which you can assign a particular function using the MSI utility. Since this machine comes pre-installed with SteelSeries engine, pushing the button will cycle through the light modes for the keyboard lighting. The third button controls cooler boost, which when pressed will turn the fans on full blast. Here's a sample. Moving around, we come to the trackpad with red accents, but I prefer it to be black. Anyway, there's a left and right dedicated button, and the touchpad accepted many gestures. I was able to pinch to zoom out, spreading 2 fingers would zoom in, using 3 fingers and pushing forward would bring up a history. Pulling down with 3 fingers will clear your desktop. This touchpad feels pretty good while using, and the gestures were very similar to a MacBook, which is a plus in my book. In the far left bottom corner, there is a SteelSeries logo that seems to be encased in clear plastic. Typing on the keyboard was very comfortable, and the keys didn't feel cheap. Actuating the keys was at a decent noise level and could possibly be used in a library. Here is a sound test. The first is the Corsair K95 RGB Platinum mechanical gaming keyboard with Cherry MX speed keys. This is the SteelSeries keyboard that's built into the laptop. The output of this machine is coming through a beautiful 17-inch 1920 by 1080 144Hz IPS display. At the top center, there are 3 small holes and a camera. Going from left to right, I believe this is a microphone. Next is the webcam, and this is the LED. It will blink when the camera is in use. The last small hole could be a microphone as well. The panel is very slim, as you can see by this picture. The panel is less than 1/4 of an inch. So with the panel being 17 inches, I decided to see the footprint compared to the Acer Nitro 5, which is a 15-inch machine. When stacked on top, they are practically the same size, and I thought that was incredible. I also put a 17-inch MacBook Pro with a protective case on it, and it's pretty much spot on. Again, great. So I wanted to try one more time. I pulled out my beater system, which is a Gateway Effects from back in the day. And sure enough, the Gateway is much larger and heavier, I might add. With the lid open, the MSI GE75 Raider is 10.6 inches tall, 15.6 inches wide, and 1.1 inches thick. The weight of the machine is 5.76 pounds, And again, the display bezel is less than 1/4 of an inch wide. On the back, there are 13 screws we need to remove. There is also a tamper sticker that you can punch through, or you can remove it completely. Just a note, I have the protective film on the underside to protect the panel. These two screws are different sizes. Make sure you put them back in their corresponding location. When attempting to open the case, you are going to need something strong and thin and not metal if you can help it. I struggled with this for over 45 minutes before coming back to the camera. I also had a few black pieces of plastic that were left over when I was done. The best place to get into the case is on the front corners. You may need 2 prying tools to help open. When you finally get your foot in the door, go ahead and slide left or right very slowly. Continue the technique all the way around. I could not get in here because the 2 jacks are protruding through the case. So I gave up and started on the other side, hoping to have some luck. I went as far as I could go and flipped it back over to the other side. And still no dice. Finally, I was able to get the ports pushed back and continue to pry all the way around to the back. There is a tab that is in each corner of the panel that is hard to get to. When these are disengaged, it will be a little easier to gain access. You want to keep moving around the laptop with your pry tool. I had to remove this panel to be able to access the remaining tabs. Finally, I was able to get in. The bottom is plastic with some metal plating. Now we have an overhead shot of the laptop. As we roll over, we have the right fan, the battery, the left fan, the RJ45 connector, which is a killer E2500 gigabit Ethernet controller, the HDMI port, the mini display port, the USB 3.1 Gen 2 port, the USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port, the headphone out, and the microphone port. Moving on, we have 2 8GB sticks of RAM. This is the 512GB NVMe drive connected to the M.2 slot. This is the second M.2 slot. Here is the CMOS battery, the killer wireless AC1550i wireless adapter. This also supports Bluetooth version 5. Here's the SATA interface. On the far left, we have again the 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports and the card reader. Moving on down, this is the right speaker with small woofer. And this is the left speaker. The speakers are easy to remove. The left and right sides have a twisty wire connecting them. They look and feel a little fragile, so be careful when moving them. This is the speaker connector. I'm going to remove the one screw holding the battery in place. Now the NVMe drive. Just remove the one screw. You want to lift up around 45 degrees and slide away from the slot. There are cooling pads under the drive which may make it difficult to remove. A little pressure will dislodge it. This is the model number. Looks as though this is a Samsung drive. Let's go ahead and install it back. Right above we have two memory modules. Gently press the silver tabs outwards and the module will move upwards. Just pull at an angle and remove. Again, this is more Samsung hardware. Installing is pretty easy. Just align the notch at the bottom of the memory to the notch on the slot and gently push down. You will hear the metal retention holders snap in place. I'm just checking to make sure that they are tightly engaged and there is no play. This is the Killer wireless adapter. You will remove this the same way as the drive in the M.2 slot. There are also two wires that need to be disconnected. It is very rare that you will need to change one of these out. I'm not going to touch it right now since it's covered in film. This is the solder interface in which you will have to use the supplied caddy to keep your drive from moving around. Not utilizing the caddy could cause electrical damage to your machine or even worse. Now we are going to access the CPU and GPU by removing the copper heatsink and fans. There will be 11 screws that need to be loosened, with 3 of them being spring-loaded, which they will not completely come out. It was difficult to remove, so I went back to make sure that the screws were extruded as much as possible. There's also a screw that needs to be removed under the power cable. While we're here, let's go ahead and disconnect it. After applying a little pressure, I was able to lift it, but I didn't get too far. There's a connector on the left fan that needs to be disconnected. It's very delicate, so again, be careful when disconnecting it. So now I'm going to try again, and yet I have to stop. There is another fan cable that is hidden between the copper pipes on the right fan. This has to be disconnected as well. I had to slowly and gently pry this up, but I finally was able to get it. Again, as I try to lift the heatsink, I'm stopped, this time by the connector that is glued to the fan. Gently peel this back, and finally, we have access. Flipping it over, we have a sticky substance and the thermal paste on the GPU and CPU. There's also a couple of cooling pads thrown in. I'm not going to bother with the sticky substance and just clean and repaste both processors. I'm going to use some Q-tip swabs, cotton balls, and some isopropyl alcohol. Now let's clean the heatsink. For thermal paste, I'm going to use Thermal Grizzly Kryonaut. Let's put a little bit on there. A pea size is enough, but depending where you live, that size may vary. Now we'll gently put the heatsink back on evenly and as level as possible. Some screw locations have numbers beside them, especially close to the CPU and GPU. I put all the screws in and tried to go in order as close as possible while tightening them down. Some screws are not labeled, so I try to pick the ones that kind of went in sequence. Next, I'll plug in the ventilation fans. The plug to the right fan is tricky to plug in because it's in a tight area. It might be a better idea to plug it in before dropping the heatsink. Plug in the long connector and then head for the battery. I'm going to go over the screws to make sure they are good and snug. Put the bottom panel back on and press. You should start hearing the tabs engage. Make sure to check that the microphone and headphone jacks are properly seated. I'm now going to replace the one small panel that I removed. It's easier to open the lid, seat it in, and then close it. Continue pressing till you don't hear any more clicks. Now I'm going to put the screws back in to hold the case tightly together. Remember that the smallest screws go in back, and there are only 2 of them. after turning the machine on, I barely saw a difference in cooling, so I opened it back up, cleaned everything back off, and repasted everything. By the way, this is the GPU and this is the CPU. When I finally got it back together a second time, I undervolted, chose a high preset in Ghost Recon, and I was getting temperatures in the upper 60s and low 70s with the fan set to auto. Not bad at all. Here are a few games that I played before the repaste and after. In closing, if the video helped you, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Meanpooh, out.
I should have known better because I really need or they burn it down with us. Fucking twins, Nikki and me, my dad and I fight. The first time I saw them was then they moved to our house. My mom and I were there, start over, and because I really need willingly or they burn it down with us inside. My dad tried to fight. We're gonna so they took him. Then they took our house. My mom and I were supposed to start over together, and we all there's a tunnel up there that leads to the house. The highwaymen are blocking our way. We're gonna need to get out. They wanted their own routes. But my mom managed to drive us together, and we all tried to go to her shoulders. I passed through that old mine when I left the house. There's a workbench inside. Use it to build a weapon. Figure out a way. Rush was the
Fight. turned.
People who fuck with us. People like you. Any chances? There's too much riding on this. Let's move. Fucking hell.
Got kicked to the field. Dropped them.
Todavía no estamos a salvo. Pero Dios le pagará esto que he hecho.